The views and opinions expressed by the guests, callers, and hosts on this and all Rense Radio Network programs do not necessarily reflect or agree with those of the network, its commercial sponsors, its radio station affiliates, or internet broadcast platforms. In these controversial times, we believe the First Amendment and freedom of the press are absolutely essential to the survival of our nation. Thank you. And now, enjoy the program.
Welcome back. Here we are, Wednesday already, middle of the week. First 2 hours tonight we're going to spend with a most unusual gentleman who has lived a life that few could even imagine. I will tell you a little bit more about that, but first let me remind you this is part 2, and in the archives you can hear part 1 of our visit several weeks ago. Very happy to have Zachary King back with us tonight. Are you there, Zachary?
Yes, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Let me read just a little bit from your website for those who didn't hear the first part of our conversation. As an average boy in an average American neighborhood, Zachary King grew up in a Baptist home. He began practicing magic, with a K on the end of it, at 10 years of age. Joined a satanic coven at 13 and had broken all, that's capital A, all 10 commandments by 15 years of age. From his teen years to adulthood, he worked his way up to high wizard in the coven and actively pushed Satan's agenda, including ritualistic abortions and breaking up churches. But then, in January 2008, while working at a jewelry kiosk, Zachary had an encounter with, as he writes it here, our Blessed Mother, which changed his life. In the middle of the mall, through the power of the miraculous metal, Zachary experienced a peace that surpasses all understanding. That peace was Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace. Our Lady's love rescued Zachary from hell and brought him straight to the heart of her Son, Jesus Christ. He began going to St. Francis Xavier Catholic Church in Vermont, and in May 2008, the month of Mary, Zachary King entered the Catholic Church. So after 26 years of involvement with the occult, Zachary has become an incredible warrior for Jesus Christ and wants to share his knowledge for the protection of God's people. It's quite a story, and that's why I asked him to come back a second time so we could go through a little more of it. If you remember the first one, we left at a very shocking moment in the narrative, of forced abortion, the results of which were really ugly and beyond words, in my view. And we'll pick it up from there. I would urge you to listen to part 1, and we will carry on. Let me ask first, Zachary, your opinion of the Pope and his visit, and who he is as a man of the church and as a man of God. Does he resonate with you? Do you like him?
Well, the Pope is allowed there's two different sides of every Pope. There's the part that is like everybody else. He has an opinion about certain things. Mm-hmm. And that side you're allowed to disagree with if you don't agree with it. And then there is the infallible side, but the infallible side is not for every thing that he says. It's just about matters of doctrine, of biblical truth. So, like, the Bible defines marriage in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Mm-hmm. So the Pope can't come along and say, we're going to redefine marriage, and homosexual marriage is okay. He can't do that because the Bible doesn't do that. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have, like the Supreme Court was able to come out and say, a circle is now going to have 3 sides, and the sun will now rise in the north.
I know.
They were able to make those decisions, but, and redefine marriage. But the Pope doesn't have that power. Mm-hmm. He has to back up what the Bible says. So, like, some things that, like, where he speaks out, he wrote an encyclical recently on the world, basically, creation. everybody doesn't notice the creation part of it, which is in part 2. They notice part 1, which talks about global warming.
Yeah, that brought him a lot of criticism. People, well, you know, who is this guy? Is he working for the globalists? Is he a New World Order advocate? Undercover? You know, what's
well, he only has like one perspective. It's like he didn't look at all the perspectives. He just went with, well, I like this one, and this is what I'll go with.
Mm-hmm.
But because that's not a biblical topic,
mm-hmm.
it's just his opinion.
So see, you just told me things I didn't know, that there are essentially two sides to the Pope, and he is allowed to have, and obviously does have, his own opinions about things, which can be right or wrong depending upon one's perspective. However,
right.
the representative of the doctrine of the Church is, I guess the word would be infallible, or should be, if he's a proper
right.
Pope.
Right. Right, so if he's talking about something that's biblical doctrine, then it's solid. But if he's talking about something that's his opinion, that's up to, both of us. If he's only talking to the two of us, then mm-hmm. both of us could have two different perspectives on what he's saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You also have to look at where he's coming from, because in Venezuela, capitalism is different than it is here. So when he speaks out against capitalism, he's looking at people that their system of government is capitalist, but it's capitalist on, if you're rich, you're in control. It's not like here where it's like a free market, free society, and if you've got a good idea and capital, you can start a business and hire people and try and be successful. There, you're only going to have those things if you're in with the government and you're rich to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he bases things on, as well as he doesn't know English. So every time he says something, it's interpreted by whoever wants to interpret it.
There's a translation issue, I'm sure.
Right.
Now, he was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Talk about a different culture down there. They got their own troubles.
Right.
How long ago? What is the process to the papacy like? Was he tabbed and watched 10, 15 years ago, or do these things manifest in a relatively short period of time? Oh, we got an opening coming up. Someone's quitting. Someone died. Let's take a look around, and we're going to vote. I mean, is it that quick?
It's pretty much that quick. They wait until. I'm sure that there are politics involved in some respects.
Yeah.
But it's not there's not a secret ballot in a sense. There is, in that it's a room full of people that all know each other, and no one really knows. That I'm sure there's like leanings, like you can read the room and think, okay, this guy is going to go that way, this guy's going to go that way.
Uh-huh.
But everybody that's in there can be voted on. So, on the one hand, I think when they do their first vote, their initial vote to see where everybody's leaning, I don't think anybody has a clue as to who.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like when the president runs and you know that you've got these 8 candidates that are running. In there it's all the cardinals, I believe, and all of them are up for the vote.
They are all equally, allegedly. That's interesting.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now let me take the telephoto lens here and back it away. Let me pull back and see the bigger picture. We have a planet, a culture, a species that has gone through some extraordinary spiritual and moral issues in the last 10, 15, 20 years, especially in this country. But wherever the media reaches, the media teaches, the media influences, and ultimately, unfortunately, the media controls. And who controls the media is essentially, in this country, a group of 5 or 6 corporations. Obviously, if our regular listeners know, it's a Zionist enterprise. Zionism being the non-religious, secular aspect of Judaism, which isn't really Judaism. They hide behind Judaism. They're very clever about that. They've used it. They've also sacrificed their own throughout history. Look at World War II. All you have to do is study the work of Michael Dov Wiesmandel, the German rabbi who got a deal with the German government in 1942 to get all the Jews in occupied Europe out of there. They were going to go to Spain, and the agreement was for this to work. He had to come up with $3 million US, which is probably like 30 million now. And they all had to go to Spain, cross the border, and promise not to go to Palestine. The Germans didn't want them in the Middle East. They knew what was going to happen. So Rabbi Wiesmandel went to World Zionist headquarters in Switzerland. I'm keeping the story very short. And it presented the offer and said, our people, we can get them out. And the Zionists, who could care less about their people, said, no, go home. You're not going to get any money from us. Unless a lot of Jews die and suffer during the war, we're not going to be able to establish Israel after the war, as we are planning on doing. And this goes back to the Balfour Declaration in the 20s. So no big surprise there. If you study it, you understand it. So we have a world that is largely, certainly in terms of consumerism, capitalism, so-called free enterprise, which is questionable anymore, turned rather dark, Zachary. We've got a lot of darkness. We could talk, and we should talk a little bit about Hollywood, the entertainment industry, how many celebrities are on videotape saying they have sold their souls to the devil in exchange for fame and money and all the rest of it. See, that's all. People tend to dismiss that. Oh, he was just kidding. She was just kidding. They weren't kidding, were they?
They were not kidding. That could be a whole other show, or it could be this one. And that's pretty much it's almost like every conspiracy group theory out there that you wonder, is that real? Almost all of them are. I come from a world where all that stuff was true. That was the world I was in.
Right.
So
Right.
working at the satanic cult that I was in, we had over 1 million members, and we had over 1 million. We had 1.1 million members in 1989.
Right.
And those things don't get smaller.
Wow. I've tried to tell people, and we can call it the cult, or whatever you want, but the cult is everywhere in the developed countries, and even the non-developed, second, third world countries, but especially the first world countries. Every town, every city, it's there. Is that an exaggeration?
No, it's very much like if you remember, there was an old Far Side cartoon where this guy is standing on a soapbox and he's screaming, the vampires are everywhere, the vampires are everywhere. And there's an Acme mirror company walking past, and no one has a reflection but him.
That one I missed. That's a good one.
And yeah, it's from the 80s, I think. That was very much like the cult is everywhere. Telling somebody is like preaching to the choir. So many people know that what you're saying is true because they're in it.
It's your police chief, your mayor, your council people. Can be anybody, and they are
really can be.
Yeah.
I am banned by the Freemasons from speaking in Medford, Wisconsin. Why? Just because of who I am. Because of my reputation, because of speaking out against Satanism, or satanic cults or whatever. And they threatened the life of the priest that hired me. And they told him that if he brought me in, if he said something else against the Freemasons during a homily, that they would kill him, go to his parents' hometown, and kill his parents and burn their farm down. And that there's nothing he could do about it because the chief of police was a Mason, the sheriff is a Mason, the mayor is a Mason, all the way up the line. So he has no recourse.
You know, you just made a point I want to underscore. It is so easy to control people with a threat. And these threats are real, and they'll make good on them. Just getting a phone call with a threat like that would make almost anybody change direction. It's
right, except that he didn't get a phone call. They showed up in person. So that's even more threatening. I
would say, yeah. Now, the last time we talked, we left off when you were involved in that ceremony, which we don't need to revisit in this particular conversation. How old were you then?
14.
Now you got
3 months.
Yeah, you got into this voluntarily. Basically, you were curious as a kid. You found that you could manifest money from the dark side.
Right.
You learned a lot at a very early age. Many people are taken when they're 4, 5, 6 years of age. They like to get them before their personalities are formed, and they are raped and defiled and brought into the cult system in that particular technique. You escaped that. You came in through the back door. It was very interesting.
Yeah, I was, there's a belief, kind of a theory, because obviously, certain things there's no way to prove until after you're dead, and then you find out. But there's a theory that Satan knows, he may not know exactly what you're going to do with your life, but he knows that everybody that has a particular mark on their soul grows up to be a real pain in his ass. And he wants to break those people or thwart them in some way to prevent them from becoming something to him.
So, in other words, these are potentially good people that he wants to subvert and corrupt and destroy and remake in his own image so they're not an enemy. Right.
So, and the best way to do that is through destruction of innocence. So, even when I was 11 years old and I was a victim of a sexual assault, you got to picture that I'm 11 in 1977. So we don't have the internet. We don't have tablets or laptops, or you can't just go up anywhere. You can't turn on your computer and look at porn. So I don't have any clue what this woman is doing. So I don't. My innocence was just whittled away really quickly, and even them getting me involved in pornography after that, but telling me that. Well, you lost all your control then. This is getting your control back. Well, I'm like this naive 11-year-old. You gotta, you can't imagine what that's like because now 11-year-olds have been looking at porn for 7 years. You need to imagine a kid that's 4 or 5 years old that doesn't have the internet. And that was my innocence level.
Yeah, 11-year-olds now, years, many of them, watching porn. I can't even begin to imagine what that does. There has been a war on childhood innocence. There's been a war on childhood, period. It's a dark war. It's a satanic war. And when you see pole dancing kits for 5-year-old girls and bikinis and all the rest of it, I didn't even want to go into it. It makes me sick. To me, the greatest glory of our species is childhood, the innocence of childhood. And that war has been declared successfully on that through the media makes me very sad for so many people who will never know, and their innocence is destroyed. It's taken from them, it's shredded, it is absolutely annihilated. They're gone. They may look like little children, but inside is very dark.
It's dead.
Dead?
It's dead. Their childhoods are dead, and a lot of times, even as adults, they're like dead inside.
This opens the door to a lot of questions about demons and demonic possession and then we flip the coin, and we have the government involved with all kinds of mind control, the MK Ultra thing, starting out in the 50s and has progressed to a state now that it's extraordinarily honed. They can use it on people at distance. They can use it on people over the telephone. And if you have someone at the age of 5 and 6, from my readings, 4 even, every time they are sexually violated, another portion or variation or variant on their personality is because what they're going through is so horrific. Something has to take the place of the normal personality, or they would just literally die. So you have alter egos coming in, being formed, and they, the cult, we've talked about this on the program over the years, they take control of those personalities, some or all of them, and therefore the person throughout life, and they can control that person anytime they want. And that's part of the world we live in.
Yeah, and then when you consider all the other things, like when my dad was alive, he was on a medicine called Traclear. It's for breathing, and Traclear is very expensive. It's like $3,000 a month for like a 30-day supply. And when I was trying to find a company that would help him, with his insurance that would cover it, I called the company Traclear themselves, and Traclear kept track of everybody in the world that takes their medicine. And I gave them my dad's date of birth and last 4 of his SOCH, and they were able to tell me what doctors he goes to, his entire list of doctors, which doctor gives him the Traclear, where my dad's address is, what vehicles my dad owns, the bank accounts my dad has. And they have all this information just because he's on this one medicine. And it opened up such a world to me, because I was like, oh, this makes so much more sense now.
Yeah.
When I started thinking about, shootings, for example, school shootings, kids that are on particular medicines, and then they play these violent video games.
Oh, all they have to do is hit reset. There's no accountability for anything.
Well, a lot of those games you play, they're online. So in certain hubs around the country or around the world, all those people would have access, like the groups of people, official groups would have access to those people and would be able to feed them information through their game, especially if they're the certain people that are on these medicines that they're able to track.
You're saying they can be programmed through the way the game plays out, and they're involved in it?
Right.
Wow.
No, that's not just based on my stuff that I do. That's based on other people that I know that have been in the same type field as me. That are able to do this type of research, and it's like, wow.
So we have MK Ultra mind control now taken into the video game level, online, live, real time. The control is, I guess, decades ahead of where most people would even begin to guess it might be. This is remarkable. I've been told that you can call someone that you have control over and simply into the telephone speak a password or two or a code word, and that person will go into an altered state, a different state, and can be programmed, instructed in any way that the controllers wish. It's that simple.
I've heard that we've had that control for over 50 years.
I have too. Imagine where it is now. They may not even need telephones. They can just do it through the air, from satellite, from vehicles driving by a house. We're so far post-Orwell, it's not funny. Orwell would laugh. He probably wouldn't believe it. That's where we are.
The other thing is that we live in such a place where the radio shows like this half the people that listen to your show are well informed and are like, know that this stuff is true. And the other half, hopefully it's less than half, think that it's just conspiracy theory junk.
I have one.
And it's just an entertainment.
Yeah, I think it's probably the best audience in talk radio, period. The smartest, most open-minded. I don't expect them all to go along with everything or anything I say, but they do consider it, they will listen, and they are here for a reason. They know they're going to get reality, they're going to get interesting versions and variants in terms of explanations of what's going on that they need. I tell people, do not always hang around with information and other source material that makes you feel comfortable. There's no growth, none. You're stuck.
Right.
Okay, well, let's go back to your story and kind of pick it up after that horrific scene that was the end of our first conversation and move forward.
All right, well, the very next day was Sunday, and I went to church with the other members of all the deacons of my church, which had been at my satanic event the night before.
This is a satanic church you went to.
Right. Well, in the morning, it was my Sunday morning Baptist church.
Gotcha.
So, that was, I think we had 12 deacons and 11 of them were in my satanic cult. So.
Really? 11 of 12 deacons in the cult. Wow.
Right. And they were also, those 11 were also members of the local Freemason group.
Mm-hmm.
So, which tried to get me to join when I was 18, and they didn't tell me it was a satanic group. They just told me it was a fun group to get together, and I'm having as much fun as I can possibly have already to me. So I didn't join. But so yeah, I stayed in that cult for another about between 3 and 4 years. So I was I did that when I was just before I turned 15.
Uh-huh.
Probably about the time I was 18. Between them and me being probably 18 or 19, I did like another 5 total. So counting the one, I did like 5 total of the abortions. And then when I was 19, I went off to college, and I was thinking, all right, I really want to join another satanic coven. I can't just keep going back to my hometown. And and I went off to a really big city, and I was like, okay, how do you find a satanic coven here? Like, I mean, it's not just going to be posted on a poster board someplace,
No yellow pages.
Satanic. Yeah, no yellow pages, anything like that, so I didn't know what to do. And the first day of school was a Wednesday, and on Wednesday, the student union opens up, and all the groups that belong to the student union, like the Republican, the Democrat, the Monarchy Party, and then the Baptist and the Lutheran, and whatever else student unions are all out there.
Mm-hmm.
And they have right out there they had the Satanic Student Union.
You're
and
kidding.
I was like, no way. Yeah, that's me. I was like, no way. That's just right out in the open. So I was like, all right, well, let's see what these guys are about. And it was a bunch of kids away from home for the first time thought that Satanism was all about getting drunk, getting high, and getting laid.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, those are things used by Satan, but I've been doing that since I was 12 years old. And I was like, I had heard that there was a satanic cult out there that was huge, that was out to take over the world. And it's like, okay, that sounds like fun. That sounds like that's something I would like to do. And when I was pretty young. I was probably I guess I was probably 12 or 13 years old. And I saw this guy one night at my cult. The guy had come in, and he came in really late at night. And he was dressed, he had a black top hat and like a tuxedo, but maybe from like the 1800s. And he just looked super cool. And he had face paint on. And it was such a cool look.
What color was he?
He was white.
Yeah, the face was white.
As far as I could tell. As far as I could tell, he was white.
Mm-hmm. So it was white face paint, all right, and an 1800s tuxedo.
Yeah.
That's quite a presence. All right.
And it all looks new. I mean, it all looks. I mean, it's very crisp and clean, and he looks at me, and we make eye contact, and he winks at me and smiles and walks into an office. And I never find out who he is. Then, so fast forward, so I'm like 19, and I'm trying out this new cult, and I'm in like the basic, the bottom rung, just entry level, and they find out which cult I used to be with, and they invite me to another meeting.
They?
More hush.
They being?
The
leaders of this particular cult?
Yeah, the leaders of this cult.
Mm-hmm.
They invite me to a more secretive meeting.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me go back to what you said. You had heard at that time, or earlier, of a super cult out to control the world. And
right.
That obviously intrigued you, as it would me. That's pretty amazing. We have a world today that reflects exactly that kind of thing. Go ahead. I just wanted to make that point so when we get back to it, people will remember you heard that early on. And it must have sounded like the ultra secret.
It was like getting into the cult itself, like the initial, like the bottom rung of just getting in, was like anybody can join, anybody's welcome, anything like that. But like that was super easy. But getting into that like inner circle or inner group was like, that was like the goal. And not just the goal of a lot of people, but a lot of people didn't even know that inner circle existed.
Well, it's like 66-degree Masons or something like that. They've heard of 32nd, but there are other layers behind that.
Right. It was so cool that I'm 19 years old and I'm getting invited to look in on this inner circle group, and they had such like high regard for me coming from this other group, and I was like, wow, this is totally cool. So I get to meet with these guys, and as I'm there, I see one of these guys dressed like that guy that I saw when I was 13. And I was just like, what is that? What is that position? And they took me aside and said that was the High Wizard. And the High Wizard there's between 1 and 10 in the world. And these are the guys who are at this cult that do the magic, that do the important magic. That if the Illuminati, at the time when I heard Illuminati, I was like, what the hell is the Illuminati? It doesn't even sound like a real word.
Mm.
What the hell is the Illuminati? And they're like, we'll explain it later. So if the Illuminati wants a spell, they come to the High Wizard. If the Shriners want a spell, they come to the High Wizard. If state government officials want a spell, they come to the High Wizard.
Define spell for me. Traditional, anything. These are real spells, and obviously real powerful, in your opinion.
Well, let's say somebody wants to be president. Somebody wants to, and it could be of the United States, or it could be of some other country. But let's also say that you own a construction business, and your company could do some big government project that would be worth billions of dollars to you. But you don't have the right connects to get your company in line to do that. So you would hire the High Wizard to do a spell for you.
You'd pay him? How would you engage him?
The satanic cult gets paid. The High Wizard doesn't actually get money from the spell work.
All right, we have to pause. Hold on, Zachary, if you would, right there. That's a good place to stop. I'm going to come back and revisit this High Wizard and how he was dressed again. This is very, very, very amazing. Stand by. Zachary King and I will be right back with more. Okay, and we're back. Zachary King, just an extraordinary life to listen to, and I hope all of you will consider it. We were talking about a world that is far different than the media will show you, ever. I remember the song, we'll get right back to the conversation here, but Screamin' Jay Hawkins in the mid-50s put out a song called I Put a Spell on You. And it's one of the top 500 songs by every list I've ever seen. If you remember that song, I wonder how serious he was with those lyrics. Hard to know. 1955, I Put a Spell on You. And Screamin' Jay was screaming when he did it. We have, remember that song?
I do remember that song.
Yeah. We have a Grand Wizard.
High Wizard.
High Wizard. And there are 10 of them, you say? About 10 or 11?
Up to 10.
In the world?
Could be in the world. Could be as little as 1. Generally, the number is between 2 and 5. And 10 is a really busy year. A lot of people need it, I guess, for satanic spells for that. Now, the look for that, if you go on, there's an artist named Pink, and she has a song, Like a Pill. If you look it up on YouTube, there's a High Wizard in her video that appears 4 times. By the third time, he's doing a spell. And he's doing a spell for the 3rd and 4th time that you see him on.
He's doing it on you, on the watcher.
But I imagine probably either doing it on the watcher, or he could be doing it on Pink herself. It could be, I would imagine that, at the time this came out, she was really popular, so, I would imagine that most people would have no idea what that position is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like this is made public, public knowledge, even though, it's a top secret position, and now I think 47 million people have watched that video. So,
and he's in it. That's him. That's one of the wizards.
That is a High Wizard that's in there.
The same tuxedo?
Yeah, they're all going to be a variation of that.
Mm-hmm. I'll have to take a look at that. Pink. The name of the song again?
Like a Pill.
Like a bad pill. All right. Okay, let's continue. You found a new cult. You saw a High Wizard.
I saw a High Wizard. I was told what that was and what he does. And I knew that...
Go ahead.
I knew that's what I wanted to be. I just, sometimes you just have that epiphany moment in your life where you see something. You see a woman and you think, that's going to be my next wife, or, that's going to be my next card, that's going to be the perfect job. Mm-hmm. I knew that's what I wanted to be.
Wow. 19.
Really, 19. I didn't get it till I was 21, and you don't get to. It's not one of those jobs where you get to pick the box and you choose what you do, and then they just give it to you. The rumor is that Satan handpicked you, and my coven is run by a CEO and a board of directors. So they send word, you get called in, you get called into a meeting, looks like a board meeting, and they announce to you that you're the chosen person to be one of the High Wizards. They show you some costume variations, and they give you a workbook. And you read the workbook in the hour or two that you're sitting there, mm-hmm. and you decide based on what the book says as to whether you want to do it. But I've never known somebody to say no. And you're like, you have permission to be an asshole.
A mega asshole.
Yes. You can do whatever you want to do. If somebody wants to hire you for a spell, that's fine. You don't have to say yes. You can, if they have to have it by midnight tonight, mm-hmm. you can tell them you'll do it next week. Mm-hmm. And It's up to you. It's whatever you want. Now, you're presented with this as if you're all powerful. You really don't have any power, because ultimately you're going to say yes. You know, your coven is about the money, and besides the money, it's like every time somebody hires you to do a magic spell, it's like they're selling a piece of their soul off to get it done.
So it does take a piece of them.
Yeah, it does.
How much does it cost? Depending on the type of spell?
Yeah, it depends on the type of spell and what resources are needed to make it come true, or to do the actual workings. The hardest core spell that a Satanist has involves an abortion. But there's a lot of things below that, and then there's a lot of things during that as well that up the ante when you're doing it. I mean, there's blood drinking rituals that can go with it, where you drink the blood of the baby. You could drink the blood of the mother. You could eat the flesh of the baby, as was described in a previous show. Or you could have sex with the mother while she's about to give birth, and then abort the baby. And each of these takes it up like another level to make the spell a little stronger and to make the act you're doing a little worse.
And these things are real, these spells.
And these things are real.
And they work.
Now, a lot of the things that the High Wizard does, even though he's being hired to do magic, a lot of the things he does. I mean, let's say that I'm the High Wizard, and I know you, and you are in the president's cabinet, and I know that if I contact you for a favor, you know that I, the High Wizard, will now owe you something big. So you want to do a favor for me. So
it goes that high.
Right. So if somebody hires me to do a spell for them, I know that it'd be easier for me if I just called you and got you to do it. I pulled your string, you did it, you did something for this guy. This guy doesn't know how I did it. He just knows that I accomplished it. So now he has to pay up, and now I owe you something. But I was able to do it, and I didn't have to do any magic or anything for it. I just pulled the string and got it done.
So when you do a spell, you actually give up a little piece of what?
It's kind of like giving up a piece of your soul. It's like your spirit, your essence.
Which is pretty dark, because you're on the other side of the picket fence.
Well, you have to look at everything that you see in the spiritual realm, or in the physical realm. There's also the spiritual realm. So, like, you've probably never been to an exorcism.
No.
But at an exorcism, if you went in, let's say that you were just a general audience member and you got permission to go to one. If you didn't go to confession first and confess your sins and get absolution before you went in, every sin you've committed since the last time you went to confession, but if you're not Catholic, you've never been, that demon will know, and he will broadcast all your sins to everybody in the room. So, like, when Catholics go into an exorcism, they make sure that they've been to confession first, because no one wants all their sins laid out there for all the world to hear.
It is said that there are more exorcisms being performed now than maybe ever on a per capita basis.
I would imagine that's very accurate. I mean, there was a time when the Pope asked for every diocese to have an exorcist. Now, that's still not the case. There's only 60 exorcists in the United States.
Well, I'm sure very much in demand. It's got to take something out of them to perform an exorcism, I would think.
It's quite an ordeal. Even to be in one for a few hours is very draining. And it's draining at the ones that I'm at, all I do is pray when I'm there. You know, I sit there and just pray rosary after rosary for the intention of the priests that are there and for the person that's trying to be free. And believe that, after like 3 hours, it's time for bed. And many times it takes almost a week to recover.
Wow.
And I can't imagine, the exorcist. A lot of times the exorcist is old, older, like they're in like their 80s, and here these guys have to, they're the exorcists of the diocese. So there's one guy for like a huge area of a state, and that work's exhausting. Plus they're a priest on top of that. So they have the regular duties that they have to do, plus the exorcism.
How successful are they? Is it, if an exorcism, is it a black and white outcome? It worked, the person is freed, or the person is partially cleansed, and the darkness comes back in, or they invite the darkness back in. What happens?
Well, generally, for the person to get possessed the first time, usually they had to open a door. It's their own fault that they're in that position, because they decided to play with something nefarious, and even if they didn't know what they were doing, ignorance is no excuse. So, and as well, it can happen as children as young as in the womb can get possessed, and that happens through the parents deciding that they're going to use like some voodoo practitioner to curse their baby or bless. They think they're blessing their baby, and instead it attracts demons to them, and the baby can end up getting possessed. Going in for an exorcism in the United States, you have to jump through 2 years of hurdles. So, and these hurdles are in place for a reason. It's like the pendulum swung too far one way, now it's swung the other way. So, you have to pass 2 years, and it's psychological and medical. So to make sure that there's absolutely nothing wrong with you, physically or mentally, that's causing you to demonstrate, these attributes. But some of the things that you would demonstrate that would show that you're possessed and not schizophrenic. Because a lot of people say, well, somebody talking in multiple voices, could be schizophrenic. They could have multiple personality disorder, or something like that. And it's like, okay, well, what form of schizophrenia allows somebody to levitate and hold it for a few minutes? Or
have you seen someone levitate, Zachary?
Yes.
No question.
Yeah, when I was a high wizard, I've levitated. I've caused other people to levitate. I've caused objects to levitate, and I've watched possessed people levitate. So levitation, speaking in a language that you couldn't possibly know, speaking about things that, like hidden knowledge, things that you don't possibly know about. Like somebody starts telling you about your parents' first date, but they weren't alive when your parents were alive. They couldn't possibly know your parents, and here they are, they're telling you about your parents' very first date and give you intimate details about what they did. Abnormally strong, like crazy strength. I know a guy that his mom put the sign of the cross in holy water on his door. And he came home one day and he punched the door, and it was a wooden door. He broke the door. So he had broken the door so many times, she put an outside door on his bedroom door. This kid's like 18, 19 years old. She put a metal door on, and she put holy water all the way around the border of it. He came home, ripped it off the hinges, and then broke it in half. It's a metal door.
Yeah, I've
supposed to be able to withstand a hurricane, and this kid just broke it in half.
Superhuman strength. I've heard of it and talked to people who have allegedly had it on one occasion. It's rare. Stand by. We have to pause here at the top of the hour, Zachary, and we'll come right back and continue. Much more to discuss with Zachary King, so stay with us. Okay, and welcome back. Hour number 2. I'm Jeff Rense with Zachary King. A most unusual life he has led and is leading, and we'll talk more about that as well. So many different directions to go. I was looking again at Screamin' Jay Hawkins and his I Put a Spell on You, which he re-recorded in 56. Very interesting. The new version became a quick success, but was banned by some stores and radio stations nationwide and did not appear on the record charts despite the fact it was clearly a big seller. The new version brought Hawkins together with Cleveland disc jockey Alan Freed, who promptly added him to his rock and roll review, which he apparently went around the country with. Up to this time, Hawkins had been a blues performer, emotional but not wild. Freed suggested a gimmick to capitalize on the demented sound of I Put a Spell on You. Hawkins wore a long cape, appeared on stage by rising out of a coffin in the midst of smoke and fog. The act was a sensation, later bolstered by tusks worn in Hawkins' nose, on-stage snakes and fireworks, and a cigarette-smoking skull named Henry. Now, this theatrical act was one of the first shock rock performances. I'd have to say it was the first. And an obvious basis for much of what came later in rock and roll, including Dr. John, Alice Cooper, Eric Burdon, Screaming Lord Sutch, Warren Zevon, Arthur Brown, whose band The Crazy World and Arthur Brown recorded I Put a Spell on You in 1968. Black Sabbath, Ted Nugent, George Clinton, and so on, including Marilyn Manson. So the roots of all this are very interesting. They have blossomed. Rock and roll, of course, is part of the entertainment game. Maybe we'll do a whole program on this, Zachary, if you'd like sometime. I think it warrants it, to try and shine a light on this incredible machine of darkness. Now, we have spells. We have satanic possession. Did you ever feel at any time that you were possessed and out of control of yourself?
Well, as somebody that practiced magic, you know that if you can get possessed, that your magic will increase, your power will increase.
Oh, really?
So you want to be possessed. But before you do it, what you're told happens isn't exactly what actually happens. So, you think that whatever you are is going to be enhanced by this possession that you think is kind of like you're working out with weights, you're just going to take some, steroids or something, and that'll boost you up a little bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not exactly, you're possessed. You don't really have control now over what you're doing, and you're doing things that, Satan doesn't want what's best for you. He wants you, he hates you, so he wants you dead. He wants you in hell.
Is this because you started out as good and that was taken from you, and now, even though you've been turned, he still hates you because you were good at one point? Are you saying that?
Well, he hates everyone.
Oh.
Because we have free will, and we can go to heaven.
Uh-huh.
We can make that option, to do good things, to worship God and to, try and, we're commanded by Jesus to go out and evangelize to the world. And Satan doesn't want anyone to do that. He hates all people. So, and if he can get somebody to do his bidding, he's happy in that his agenda is being moved forward, but he doesn't care about you. As long as you'll do his agenda, great. Then he'll, throw you a little scrap here and there, which, anybody that practices magic knows that not all their magic works. And not everything works all the time. And you don't get
a universal law. Yeah.
Right, and you don't get everything you want. You just get a sampling of what you want.
Uh-huh.
And you keep thinking that if, you keep do it worse, it's like, well, I did magic before and I killed a dog, and I almost got exactly what I wanted. I'll kill a baby this time. I'll do the abortion this time. And then you might get close to what you wanted. Satan's happy, of course, because, you killed a baby, but, it's like, and you realize, well, I'll have to kill two next time. Or
It's a con job of sorts.
It really is. It really is, and some people never see it.
The idea... Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The idea of an epidemic now, and certainly if you've been watching the news from England, it is a pedophile nation. It is an evil nation. Ministers of Parliament, David Cameron now having sex with a dead pig in full view of others at a, quote, party. The shadow of evil obviously lays heavily upon that man and many others in Parliament. Jimmy Savile, how many children did he defile? Truly an evil man. There are many of them. SRA, satanic ritual abuse, DID or MPD, multiple personality disorder, extremely common now, from all that I can gather, all over the Western world.
One of the really sad and scary things, in a sense, is that if you look at, like, I was watching Criminal Minds, I think, like a couple of years ago.
What were you watching?
And Criminal Minds.
Okay.
And they had an episode where they were talking about SRA, and they said, well, you know, SRA was proven false in the 80s. And if you look it up on, like, Wikipedia, they have an entire article about SRA and about how false it is. I know counselors that take care of kids that are, you know, are adults now, but suffered from SRA, and that's how their whole business is built on that. So we're talking hundreds of people that they're counseling. It's like, how can you counsel hundreds of people on something that doesn't exist?
Right, of course. Now, some of these counselors probably, I'm going to guess, are working for the dark side, and they're just making sure these people don't get well. That's how evil is. There's no permutation it won't explore. And yet there are many of these counselors who are very strong, very noble people who obviously care. I don't know any of them, but it is good to know that there are people out there who can help those who have been taken.
There was a murder, a double homicide that happened somewhere in Florida, and I heard a report on it, and somebody sent me the article because I guess the chief or the sheriff suspected that some witches had something to do with it. There was something satanic involved. And there's actually nothing in the article that suggests that there is the statement from the law enforcement person that says it. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't give any evidence as to why he would say that. But then it was like a Wiccan connection, and the Wiccans came out, like the National Wiccan Association came out and said that they would never be involved in anything nefarious like that, and they, you know, were very upset that they were being accused of something like that.
True or not true? How are the Wiccans? Are they lightweights or are they heavyweights?
Well, they're both. They claim that they only practice white or light magic,
right?
But in their in their bylaws, so to speak, it says that if you do something against a Wiccan in some way, if you attack a Wiccan in some way, mm-hmm. they are allowed to smite or smote you. And that's by whatever means they can.
They can take you out.
They can take you out. Well, one of the things that they can take you out for is if you're a Christian. Because if you're a Christian, you pray for their conversion, and they see that as an attack. So they're allowed all day long to attack Christians as much as they want. As well as they will tell you that abortion is a woman's sacrament. She not only has the right to go get an abortion, but it's like a holy sacrament. She owes it to her body to go kill her baby, and that will make her a stronger woman. That doesn't seem like that's all that nice.
No. The idea, and it doesn't have to be a Wiccan, it can be anyone who is possessed, I would think, would have similar parameters to operate within. If they were attacked by a priest or a counselor trying to help them, showing them kindness, showing them understanding, using techniques, professional and otherwise, that they've learned, that this would be viewed by Satan as an attack, and the person, him or herself, as an attack. And therefore,
as well, a lot of people...
Go ahead.
As a lot of people view kindness as weakness anyway, and then believe that if you're weak, you don't deserve to live.
Kindness is and care are two of the highest virtues of the pure, and those are despised by those of the dark side, hated, and viewed as weakness. That's what you just said, and I assume that's sort of one of the dividing lines between good and evil. You cannot reach out to someone who is under the thumb of Satan or the dark side with kindness. What happens if you do?
You're in a world of hurt. You're deep in the hurt locker.
And then they have people who are married, family, one or the other will be given over to Satan. There's another term, and we've talked about it on this program before. People identify with their captors in such a way that it further disarms them. It's called the Stockholm Syndrome.
Right.
Have you run across that?
I have. In the 80s and in the 90s, there are places around the country where people are basically captive or slaves, but they've been doing it for so long that they could leave the front door open and unlocked and let these people walk outside to check the mail, and they won't try to run away. They think that the people that they're with, they've kidnapped them since they were children, and they sexually assault them or beat them or whatever it is that they do to them. And these people are like, this is my master or my owner, and I won't do anything to disappoint them. And they know that at some point, if they disappoint their owner too badly, that they'll be killed, and they think they deserve it.
Yeah, I've read about this. The human mind is a remarkable playground for evil. We have a culture that seems to be, because of the media, headed in the direction you left, like a runaway freight train. I see little children at these music videos, concerts, absolutely enthralled and enraptured with clearly satanic material. Clearly. I would surmise the number of converts, potential converts, hell, they don't even have to be taken anymore, is huge.
Well, it's also is that a lot of people don't realize that the music is not always the hardcore, Rob Zombie or Marilyn Manson. It's not necessarily the bad lyrics. It's you look at Miley Cyrus or
no, you look at it. I'll pass.
It was back in the 80s and the 90s, like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. A lot of their lyrics, a lot of their songs deal with promiscuity. So just jumping from girlfriend to girlfriend to girlfriend.
Well, that's the name of the game now. If it feels good, do it. And we're talking about high school kids, sex in cars, sex in the bathrooms. It's bad news, and it's not getting any better.
But they do things like if you look at if you go on YouTube, and this will be a waste of time, so don't waste your time, do this, but you could go on YouTube and look up like an NSYNC or Backstreet Boys concert. It'd be a 2-hour show. And you remember, you can't get back this 2 hours of your life, so you lose it forever, but if you look at their audience, it's all like, it's adults because they bring their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then the kids will be like 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old girls. And on the
They're
stage,
being sacrificed.
on the stage, these boys, which are men, are humping the stage,
Mm-hmm.
grabbing their crotch,
Mm-hmm.
swinging their hips around. I mean, Elvis, they had nothing on it. I mean, Elvis was nothing. It's like these guys are like, showing their goods right there.
Right.
And here these, 8-year-old girls are screaming and crying and grabbing onto their clothes and, trying to like rip off a piece of clothing to throw it up there. And, here, 8 and 9-year-olds dressed like hookers, and their parents brought them there.
Oh, and they act like hookers too. A lot of
And they act like hookers too. It's sad. I mean, I remember I worked at Spencer's one year, and they did the Halloween part of the store, which is like the whole store at Halloween.
No, Spencer's is a store in most malls. Has a catalog too, and they sell a lot of we used to call it raunchy, but it's far beyond raunchy now. Go ahead.
Right, and they have a sex part of the store.
Yeah.
And any age kid, anybody can
Any
walk in.
age kid. And you'll see them in there, 8, 9, 10 years old, hanging out in that section. I've seen it myself.
And it's like pictures, sex toys, whatever you, blow-up dolls, whatever you want. But in the costume section, there's like these sexy nurse, sexy maid, sexy doctor, whatever. But the sizes go all the way down to small children. It's like, I don't want to see a small child dressed up as sexy anything. I don't really want to see a child dressed up in a costume at all. But, can I at least not have them dressed as something sexy?
When you run into people, parents now, in your work, who clearly don't get it and think that that's kind of like it's just like having a cell phone. It's just part of the culture. It's no big deal. How do you begin to try to get through to them, Zachary?
Unfortunately, the majority of the people that are already so immersed in that culture, there's not a whole lot you can do. It's like you can drop a hint or, say something like that. But, a lot of times, I've had people that come to my talks that kind of come as like a morbid curiosity. And then when I start talking, they start looking at me like I have 3 heads or that I have 12 eyes. It's just like I am the strangest creature they have ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't occurred to them that, their child, not only could their child look at porn on their smartphone, but probably does. And
Probably does, absolutely.
And they don't care. Like as a parent, they're like, well, boys will be boys.
No, it doesn't work that way. No. That's not what we're talking about now. We're talking about something that permeates the very soul of these children. And once that stuff has gone in, it never goes away. You can't erase the blackboard. It's gone.
Right. I was telling somebody today that I said my favorite math equation in the whole world is a quadratic equation. And the last time I did one, I was 24 years old. Now I'm 49. I could not do a quadratic equation to save my life. Now I know that there's a formula to it, and I know that once you know the formula, you can do them all day long. And if you don't know the formula, you'll stand there and stare at it on the chalkboard and look like a dummy because you'll have no idea what you're supposed to do. It looks very confusing. Now, that's my all-time favorite math problem. Just all the types of math that I took in, grade school and high school and college, that's my favorite problem. Could not tell you for the life of me how to do one now. But I can tell you what the porn picture looked like that I saw when I was 7 years old. That should not be. That's one of those things that ought not be. I can remember the porn exactly. It was Photoshop and it was fake, I'm sure. But I still remember it, and I was 7. And once that image is in there, it's in there for life. And once the child's innocence is gone, it's gone.
I try to tell parents that on the program. For God's sakes, above all, protect your child. Protect your child's innocence. Being a child is the most wonderful blessing we have in this lifetime. whatever this lifetime is. And the dark, satanic dark, tries to destroy that as early as possible. And they are becoming more and more proficient at it all the time.
Exactly. And it's like Satan's goal is to slap God in the face. Whatever he can use to slap God in the face with, whatever works the best is how he's the happiest. Which is, in a way, I mean, it's an oxymoron because he can't be made happy. He's like an unhappy jerk all the time. It's just different levels of his unhappiness. So it's like destruction of innocence is the game of the day. So obviously you can't get more innocent than a baby in the womb. So, he's out to destroy that as much as he can.
Mm-hmm.
If you make it past that, if you survive Roe versus Wade, then, he's out to destroy you however he can. And in this culture now, pedophilia and porn is like the number one ways to get somebody. And since porn is, we run a ministry, and we don't, for the most part, we don't surf the web. We have a website, and I have emails that I answer all day.
Mm-hmm.
And we could have a day where I'm in my email maybe 40 times, but I haven't gone anywhere. Yet in my spam folder, and sometimes in my regular folder, will be 40 porn emails. I didn't go anywhere to get these. They're just randomly sent to me.
Mm-hmm. Just random. We're going to go through the break again, Todd. Thanks. Who's randomly generating these? Programmed into supercomputers? The internet, of course, the most powerful medium on the planet, in my view, now. And if you don't get it, tune in another 3 years and watch how powerful the internet is. If you own a website at the top of the internet mountain of 1 billion active websites, you have power. Power. This is the currency. The internet is the currency of power and control. Nothing like it have I ever seen or imagined. And these kids walk around, you see them all the time, Zachary, and you out there listening, wherever you are in the world. We've got people, God only knows how many countries listening. It's the same thing. They have a smartphone. They have all the known information that we have access to from the universe in that smartphone. And what do they use it for? Texting. They're addicted to the worst possible way of manifesting that technology in their lives. Just trash, garbage. They can't even turn them off and put them in their pocket. They hold them, they constantly glance at them to see if they have gotten a message or a text. That, to them, is a warranty, a guarantee that they have worth. They're being addicted, and they're getting a fix. And I don't know how you get to parents who think it's very cool to buy their 8-year-old cell phones because they'll only use it if they get in trouble. A smartphone, an iPhone, whatever. I don't know how you get through to parents like that. We've skipped 2 generations of responsible parenting now. When I saw that CNN had hired a former director of MTV to revamp CNN, to make it more interesting, cool, exactly, hip, I knew it was over. And that's when I quit television. I was a television news director and anchorman for 12 years, and I just quit. I could see where it was going. And now we have TV on your smartphone. We have clips. We have everything. I mean, you can literally sit and stare at that thief called the internet, YouTube, all day long. Or you can game play. No game involved. You play games with live people all over the world. It is, and we're just at the infancy of the potential of this, Zachary. Where is it going to go?
The hell in a bucket.
Absolutely. I see children and I see victims, and I don't feel comfortable at all about what we are as a species on this planet. I'm not talking about the good people, and you listening understand what I'm talking about. But the controllers, maybe of a mentality, a spiritual side, and I use that term advisedly. It comes from the darkness, the darkest of the dark, because something is wrong at the top of what we call governance, government, and an organization of society. It is black. Now, we have changes coming. There are exceptions, but generally speaking, it's moving in the wrong direction. And I don't know how to even begin to tell people, except on an individual basis, to become aware of your surroundings. And it's not necessarily to bathe yourself in this evil, but how do you go about it? How do you tell people? People who seek you out, what are they coming from and what are they asking for?
A lot of people are just, they're looking for a light in the darkness.
Yeah.
It's like I try and teach people that, you are not battling a lot of things. I know it seems like there's a lot of physical evil happening in the world, and that is true. And that's how evil manifests itself, is that you see it in evil ways. You see it in physical ways.
Oh, and they don't hold anything back on the news anymore. We don't see dramatizations. We see real death, real agony, and that goes in. That also goes in and doesn't come out to the person watching.
But we have to realize that, in the Bible, in Ephesians, it says, "For we battle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers of the air."
Powers of the id?
The air.
Is that what you said? Oh, that's
powers of the air.
Powers of the id too.
That's actually true as well. Ego has a lot to do with what happens in the world. People not wanting to relinquish what they have, or think that if they share what they know, that they've lost something somehow. But so much is controlled. For the people that don't believe in Satan, he believes in you. It's like, just because you don't believe in him, don't think that will protect you. Has it protected you so far? Probably not. We're all in the boat together. Regardless of what you believe is steering it or going against it. It doesn't, everybody is affected in the same way. And the devil knows, it's like one of my favorite movie quotes is the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was proving to the world he didn't exist. So you've got people that don't believe that the devil is real.
That is the greatest trick. That is amazing.
If the devil's not real, then God wouldn't be real. If God's not real, then there's no reason to go to church. There's no reason to go to church. Let's just not go. And if we don't go, we make Satan happy. So we're doing the things that Satan doesn't want us to. We're doing exactly what he has laid out. It's taken him a long time to get us to this point, and here we are. So I teach people how to arm themselves in spiritual warfare. It describes in the Bible things to do, like the armor of righteousness, and the breastplate of truth, and the sword, and the helmet, and all of this stuff. Anybody that's listening to your show that's Catholic knows that we have a few more ways to protect ourselves than what the Protestants do, because the Protestants use the Bible. We use the Bible as well, but we have extra stuff. So, we also have praying the Rosary. We have the Eucharist. The Eucharist is the body and blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. Nothing could protect you better in a day than to take the Eucharist every day. What can protect you better than Jesus? Nothing. We have Eucharistic adoration. It's a place where we can go and we can see Jesus anytime we want. It's one thing to stay at home and pray and, say, I wish I could see you, God, so that we could have this face-to-face conversation. Well, if you're Catholic, you can go to a Eucharistic adoration chapel, see God face-to-face, and have this conversation. We have novenas. We have, Divine Mercy chaplets. There's tons of stuff to do. There's sacramentals, holy oil, holy water, holy salt, miraculous medal. That's how I ended up coming into the church. St. Benedict medal, St. Benedict crucifix. I mean, there's tons of stuff to protect yourself with.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people, when you're fully armored up, don't just stand there and take the fight. Don't just stand there and just wait for the fiery darts to hit you. Go chase the devil down and whip his ass. Don't let him attack your children. Attack him first. And if you're thinking, well, I don't know if I could be in spiritual warfare, but you're in spiritual warfare. If you're here, you're in spiritual warfare. If you've got kids, you've been in it since they were born.
Yeah. The idea of kindness and care and good being the enemy. Look at the Bohemian Grove, and every year they have their celebration, their ceremony, the cremation of caring of other people, for other people, about other people. They don't like that, and they burn it.
They burn it, and they do a mock sacrifice, and we use the word mock here lightly and put it in quotation marks, mock sacrifice of a child. And the people that they, at one time, I used to have a flyer that I was given that advertises the cremation of care. And nowhere in that flyer does it say that it's a mock sacrifice. So everybody that goes is basically believes, they believe that there's a real child being sacrificed. I've been told that there has been real children sacrificed there. That the times that I've been there, I saw the child afterwards alive.
Mm-hmm. How many times have you been there?
Over 18. The very first time was in 1987 or 88. Mm-hmm. 87, it was my first year as a high wizard. They make you, as soon as you're the high wizard for the first time, when you're officially a high wizard for the first year, you're the person that goes to Bohemian Grove.
How did you dress?
As a high wizard. And you always dress, if you're in official capacity, you're always dressed that way.
Did you see any others?
No, there's never two high wizards at the same event.
People, how did they look at you?
The majority of them seemed to know who I was or what I was. And there's a high wizard at every Bohemian Grove event. And there's not just the ones that, the cremation of care is an annual event, but Bohemian Grove is open more than once a year. So there's other times during the year where they would see the high wizard. At many times during the cremation of care weekend, the high wizard is the most dressed person there. There's a lot of nudity going on and a lot of...
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's quite the debauchery fest. There's a lot of homosexuality happening. A lot of they invite gay prostitutes and gay porn stars to come in and do demonstrations or an act. But then you're invited to join in if you want, or if you want to pair off and go off quietly and do something, you can do that.
Mm-hmm. This is just amazing. Hold on a second. We do have to pause, Zachary. We'll come right back and continue. Okay, and welcome back. Zachary King, and I would urge you to click on his name and explore this further if you think you have trouble in your life, even if you don't, because it is here. How much of the planet is under satanic control right now, would you say? Tough question. Just all of it?
I'd say all of it, pretty close to all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any place that the devil hasn't snuck into and, is disruptive. I mean, I worked with breaking up or splitting Baptist churches. And I had someone call me recently about an incident that happened within their Baptist church.
Mm-hmm.
And they really didn't have any idea who I was. They were calling me to ask me about another area. And when they finished explaining that, and they had dropped a hint about something else, I delved further into that other area.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like that they have some satanic attack happening at their church, and they're just unaware of it. You know, the three ways that Satanists, organized Satanists, would try and disrupt a Baptist church is either through a monetary scandal, a sex scandal, or gossip. And I know gossip seems like, oh, you know, that's not so bad. You know, everybody gossips, and everybody does it, and that doesn't make it good.
Oh, libel and defamation on the internet is all over the place.
Right.
Constant. That's I almost think it's one of the primary trades in currency in terms of smearing people, smearing and attacking the good, people who care. We know the government pays thousands of people to work the internet all the time, targeting sites. And that brings me to my next area, and that would be, where do we draw the line, or is there a line between satanic possession, demonic possession, and mind control? It seems like the two would slop over, and I am told that if someone takes drugs or gets drunk, that opens the door wide for all kinds of issues. But is there a difference between the two that really matters?
And I think in some levels, yes, and on a spiritual level it would. Because if spiritually you're not doing things to intentionally become possessed, or even on a spiritual level, like you're not playing with Ouija boards, you're not going to seances, you're not going to psychics, but, you know, you got in deep with some sharks, and they told you, hey, you know, you can eliminate your debt if you go and work for these guys. And these guys put you in a room with a bunch of, you know, crazy lights and sounds and hook you up to, you know, electrodes and put on earphones on you, and it just seems like a weird thing to do, just a whole testing thing. Mm-hmm. And the next thing you know, you're going out shooting the president, you know, just because somebody happened to mention the word rosebud or something to you, mm-hmm. You know, that's not necessarily your fault.
Not necessarily what? Your fault?
Not necessarily your fault. You didn't go looking for that.
Right.
You know, you didn't try to do something on a spiritual level. You did something more on a physical level. Mm-hmm. You know, but I think there can be a lot of overlap. You know, that there's got to be a lot of overlap between multiple personality disorder and somebody that's possessed. You know, if you look at one of the hardest things to determine is whether somebody is possessed or if they're schizophrenic, because the symptoms overlap. You know, just because somebody can open their mouth and have three different voices come out of their voice, their throat, at the same time, I know that sounds like possession, but there are opera singers that can do that. They can separate.
Right,
and
monks
can
do that.
Right, yeah, monks can do that. And, you know, and then some people can talk in 3 or 4 different octaves of their voice, so they sound like an adult or they sound like a child. Mm-hmm. And it's just a fake thing they can do, but, you know, if you're multiple personality disorder, you could probably do it with more than 4 voices. And you would believe in your head that it's 4 or 7 or 10 different people. Mm-hmm. But it could also be a demon in you doing the same thing. It's like when it comes down to possession, there are other telltale signs, you know, like the superhuman strength or knowing languages that you couldn't possibly know, or being able to levitate. You know, those are the things that separate you from being schizophrenic, because there's no symptom of schizophrenia that's levitation.
The idea of, again, this war on the planet among our species. I'm not sure if any other species, so-called lower species, are struggling with this, like dolphins, who are clearly very intelligent. and others. But the battle seems to be, now more than ever, between good, care, kindness, generosity, love, and on the other side of the coin is control.
Power and fear.
Total control, power and fear. I mean, that's what your children are growing up with, folks.
It's like the news, and like advertising on most mainstream, TV stations is to keep you in fear. It's to sell you 12 things that you already have 12 each of.
Right.
And you don't need 12 more bottles of aspirin, but you feel like you have to because there might be a global meltdown at any time, and this aspirin's not going to be available anymore.
We've already had a global meltdown, in my view. It's like people walking around they're dead, but they're still walking. We have a society of reactionaries, not proactive young people anymore. They're taught to be drooling zombies, basically, and they're waiting for the next stimulation. It's all stimuli-based, and they're expected to respond, and they do. It's really like shooting fish in a barrel. It's very simple, and yet it's taken to such levels of sophistication. And I'm not saying it all comes from supercomputers. It may be off-planet, it may be on-planet, it may be all of the above. But I see people with very little chance to make it anymore. And I think you've made a very important point that kindness and goodness will not defeat the dark side. In fact, it'll make it angrier. How do you counsel people in that regard?
Well, as being a Christian, you have to...
I'm not suggesting give it up. I personally have always been a very kind person, and I'm not about to change that. That's not going to happen. But I see young people now. Go ahead.
Don't change. Don't. Satan wants you to be the opposite of what you are. You can't give in to that. You have to. It's unfortunate that it might be with your dying breath that you're nice. That with your dying breath, as somebody strangling you, you tell them how to receive salvation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you have to stand up for what's right. You can't let bad win.
Not going to happen here.
Evil eventually loses.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot of crap that we have to wade through first. And as a society, as a world, we have put ourselves in this position.
We have indeed.
Everything that we have done has put us where we are. And now we see the results of it, and it's like, oh, this was our fault. And I'm not saying I'm not blaming us for, planes running into our Twin Towers. I'm not saying that's our fault, but the evil that surrounds us.
There's a whole nother level of accountability. And one of the first things that young people are taught is how to escape and dodge accountability. It's not,
everything is not my fault.
Not my fault. You present someone with something that they've done, and they'll say, you, he, she, them, they, they're always a victim. We are living in a victim culture. That's how they do it.
I was very amused, but as well, right on board with the stuff you were saying earlier, that, we have such a technologically advanced society, and everybody's talking about the next iPhone.
Yeah.
So they can text with it.
Yep.
Or selfies. Some big survey came out today about selfies. It's like, who gives a damn? It's like something like the average millennial spends 54 hours a year sending selfies. I'm like, that's over 2 days. You're wasting 2 days of your life.
Well,
taking a picture of yourself.
Full work week and a half almost. It's every year. That's amazing. I hadn't heard that. I'm sure it's only going to proliferate. As I said, come back in a couple of years if you want to see control. Wow.
It's the state of where we are, though. Think about it. It's mind control at every level. If you look at cell phones and games and stuff on the internet and the internet games that are like, where you can go on in America and play against somebody in China, and these people are online for like 24 hours at a time, and then they take like a nap and then get back online.
Yeah.
And if their internet subscription ran out, they die.
Some do.
Like they're addicted to these things.
Yeah. It is really almost a terminal addiction to anything they watch and absorb, even if it seems completely innocuous, can be easily used to control people. Zachary, we're out of time. Thank you very much for giving us 2 hours again, and we'll put your 2 visits together. If you'd like to come back again and talk about the media, entertainment, Hollywood, the movies, music, what they call music now, we'd love to do that. So let me know.
I would love to come back anytime you want me here.
Well, thank you very much, Zachary. All right, you take good care. We'll talk again.
Thank you.
Okay, good night.